for an American to be in because we just violate everything.
Yeah, we like force everyone to go in their private room over on the other side. So Mike and I are just talking about the book, and so I'm working on a book called, well, we don't know what the title's going to be, but I think the title's going to be Found Up's Journey to Social Capitalism, the Untold Blockchain Story. Right?
And the End of Kings.
The End of Kings. But it needs to have blockchain in there. If we say End of Kings, then the End of Kings.
That's a chapter.
A chapter's End of Kings, yeah, the End of Kings. So what we were discussing is that there's 3 sections of the book. It's the unraveling, the undoing of the current. Is basically the whole idea of the unsection, which is going to be 6 chapters, right? Is understanding the problems, and maybe we go into great detail, a lot of support, everything else of the because you're probably right. You know, we can't list all the problems of the planet in one chapter. Maybe each one is, we talk about the oceans as one. We talk about the terra, the water, the forests, right?
For feng shui, we go with 5 elements.
What are the 5 elements of feng shui?
Minerals, right?
Okay.
To be exploited.
Yep.
Air.
Yep.
Water.
Water. Yeah.
I guess earth and minerals are the same. Well, then there's fire.
What would be fire? Iron? Maybe fire is like, maybe fire, I don't know. I mean, so the idea is that we have to understand the problem at hand, and we have to understand that our planet is collapsing, looking at Al Gore's latest video, and it all comes down to so that's 6. So there's 19 chapters. So the first chapter we were thinking would be kind of my interesting, about the author. Growing up in Spain, prep school in England, having a classmate who did, being taught by the mother of the woman who, of the guy who wrote Slumdog Millionaire. His mother was that's kind of a cool little bit. So the first chapter is kind of like an intimate inside my like a chapter my biography. Right? Who is this guy? How is this guy? Kind of my background. That I'm not like a guy who grew up in a little town in Pennsylvania.
Your eyes are lighting up, Mike.
Huh?
Your eyes are lighting up.
Yeah, it's because I'm getting the UNDAODU. The UNDAODU. There was someone, the guy who was there's a very famous debater. I can't think of his name. And he would always do this with his eyes. He trained it. No. He would get excited, use this little gesture to really get a point. And he obviously he did that, right? So he would when I'm gonna hit a point, I'm gonna open my eyes up. So it's like it says he does these little eye, but he wouldn't do it with like this with the like that. It was actually the eyes. So I should work on that. And then when I want to get a point across to you, I open the eyes and I'm like, yeah, it's like I'm gonna open the eyes. So the first chapter of the 19 is about the author, about me, right? The story, my story in a way. Growing up in Spain, moving to England, being a product of divorce, fractured family. Best friend was a dog, Isa, who I left in Spain, who I still, in my mind, is still running around Spain. That's my mind, Isa never died. I mean, obviously it's illogical, but in my mind, really, I can't imagine her dead. I love her that much, right? And to me, that becomes kind of a metaphor to how I want to leave. If someone loves me that much, they'll never think of me dead. Just like I never think of my dog dead, even though intellectually, I think of the dog, obviously he's dead, right? There's no 30-year-old dog. But I didn't go through the trauma of his death or her death. I never witnessed it, but in my heart, she's still alive. And that's the truth though, on the UNDAODU, she is. Her spirit, doesn't matter that is the physical spirit of that creature has gone, right? But she's still with me. Same thing with Michael Joyce, the guy who taught me to say the word is to invoke that thing into being. in my mind, he's still around, even though I know he died. I heard the you know, same thing with Alan Rickman, you know, who brought me Arena Brown. And I think that's kind of really cool. Like I've had all these, I attended the Royal National Theatre acting program, which, you know, with Alan Rickman and Ian McKellen. I met these amazing, I sat down for coffee with Ian McKellen without really understanding what that meant at the time. It was like, I didn't, you know, I wasn't like, oh shit, it's Ian McKellen. I wasn't that kind of actor. It's like, I didn't really know who he was. But, you know, I had coffee with him and just chatted about stuff. He just kind of, nothing serious. And, you know, and how I kind of screwed up with my dad, where I was supposed to go to Stratford, and I ended up with a chick, a beautiful redhead ballerina with the most incredible body, like the most amazing, beautiful woman I've ever been with, and ended up from a nightclub in her bed, and completely forgetting that we're supposed to go to Stratford, you know, and he built this whole trip just for me, and I fucked it up. And then the realization, that was kind of like the realization I had like the other night with Mikey when he wanted to commit suicide, and he's banging his head against the door and he's punching he's hitting himself as hard as he could. That shit I did. I mean, that is me. I didn't teach him that. That's epigenetics right there. That's epigenetics, Mike. That is epigenetics. That violates the whole idea of evolution. Epigenetics does. That's what no one. But I'm witnessing. And he's here in bed, and he's physically kind of, you know, like the banister there. He's looking at me, going, "Look, I'm going to do this." And I laughed at this, and he looked at me and I go, "Mikey," "Mikey, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because you're so like me. It's unbelievable how much you're like me, right?" So, oh, man. So, and then it's like, you know, I held him down for a while. I'm surprised. He must have woke you up. You know, I fought with him, and then finally I was like, "Mikey, 3 strikes. You did it yourself." I kept saying, you know, "You did it yourself. I warned you. I told you," you know. And then finally he came over and wanted to snuggle up with me and say sorry. And I hugged him. I said, "You know, you're just like me. You're the same way, you know." But I had to give him something. I let him install the game again. I had to, you know, he would not give up. That's me. He would not let go of the fucking bone until I would give him something. He wasn't going to surrender. And I gave in to him. I said, fine. I could see what he wanted. All right, great. So I said, here, you know. So it felt like he won something. He needed to feel that he got something. And then once I gave him that, then he released and kind of hugged me and everything else. And but my wife was like, "Oh my God, my son wanted to commit suicide over a video game." And then you have a freaking book on it. And this is where it begins.
That's what I did on the plane over. Edit the book.
But this is exactly where it begins. This is where the problem begins. And if you don't nip it in the bud now and talk about it, which I'm still going to hold my son on it, he's got to write a paper on it. I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to kill myself. So I'm going to have my wife write to his teacher and say, Mikey needs to write a paper to the class on why I wanted to kill myself over a game. He has to talk to the class about it. I don't care if it embarrasses the shit out of him, right? But that's stupid. It's really stupid. My thinking was really stupid. Why would I want to kill myself over a game? It's just a game. It's pixels, right? He needs to understand that. He's 8 years old. That's just games. These games are not serious. There's more things serious than that. So, but yeah, and then just, I think, you know, kind of all the different things, like then doing a Shakespeare festival. To me, the Shakespeare festival is huge because why the fuck, you know, all started with a guy saying, "Hey man, what are you doing?" I'm reciting sonnets in a park ranger with his, and if I would have been black, he would have shot me probably. He wouldn't even ask me, "What are you doing?" He would have pulled out the gun and shot. Crazy black guy spouting off. He probably had rabies, right? Right? Me too. You gotta plug that in. But he has his hand on his gun saying, "Hey, you know," and I see him and I realize, make the connection, this guy thinks I'm a threat. I'm a theater student. Disarm him. Oh, he relaxes. "Oh, you are?" "Yeah, I'm just reciting some Shakespeare." "Oh, you are? Why do you do a Shakespeare festival?" Just out of his head, why do you do a Shakespeare festival? And that was the moment that led to the Shakespeare festival. And had I not gone to the Royal National Theater, then I'm like, I'm not thinking, wow, I'm going to send a postcard to Ian McKellen, Alan Rickman, Anthony Hopkins. I wrote them all letters saying, invite. Anthony Hopkins wrote back saying, I hate Shakespeare. Can you believe that? Anthony Hopkins hates Shakespeare. He's like, yeah, I hate Shakespeare. Don't do it. He was just to his point, right? God, I wish I had kept those letters. Ian McKellen said basically I was too busy, and Alan Rickman called me. He didn't write back. He actually called me. I didn't pick up the phone and went to voicemail because I was working out of the computer lab. But I got a message. Hey, this is Alan Rickman calling you. You know, I got a great director. I can't make it, but I have a great director. Her name's Arena Brown, and that's how I got my director. But these are great little nuggets, you know, that should be in there. That, you know, that made me who I am today, in many respects. And then the whole process of doing the Shakespeare Festival became after the fact of the Shakespeare Festival, it became my proof of concept for a Found Up, and kind of like really thinking into it. It's like, how did it happen? How was it possible? What made it happen? And how do you duplicate it? And that was where the whole idea of what I call the open incubator framework, which became the open innovation framework, right? The whole idea came out of was developing this cycle and then looking into the startup and say, how does the startup work, right? And realizing that there is a prototype, there is the napkin drawing. What is that? Proof of concept is the napkin drawing. Then there's the prototyping and the minimal viable product. But we would all loop them together. We'd all, back in the day, it was like they were all one thing. We didn't break them apart and meaning different things and all the kind of nuances. So, and then the struggle, reaching out to, I think we need to have in there, 500 Startups, Dave McClure, going with Chris to, having these guys is basically to a point where they block me. Eric Reese, no one hit him, Sash, like all these people. The guy from the Founders Institute, to a point where I couldn't get these guys to give me, I couldn't get them to basically the time of day to absorb the idea. Everyone wants a 90-second elevator pitch. They get it, they don't.
But you need to show this transition from acting student to you in the real world, right? And then being tied into this whole system. So you're in college, now you leave. What happens to put you into this mode?
Well, those are the things. What happened was, one, I did a Shakespeare Festival. Two, then I went and I raised the money, right, for National Community Development, who's raised $3.4 billion of individuals like me who go out and do all the work. And they bill them $4,000 and they keep the rest. And they had a template for doing it. That was my first, they had a specific roadmap, a process, a framework. So I was like, there is where the idea of a framework, right? So what would a framework be for a startup? And then realizing that in the process, I think that's where how bees, in the process I was doing bees, and I had enough of the startup that I could recognize the law of diffusion of innovation. So when I saw the collapse of bees, I was like, this obviously is growth, but something happens in 1950 to now, which looks like the inverse of the law of diffusion of innovation. What happened in 1950? And when I went to Wikipedia back then, I went in 1950, I swear to God, the first line, it's not anymore, they removed it. The first line said 1950 is regarded as the birth of pesticides. It said that within the first paragraph. I don't know if it was the first line, but right there. I was like, holy shit. The bees are dying because of chemicals. When everyone's saying we need flowers, or it's radio towers or anything else, right? Before anyone else, it's like, here is the smoking gun on that. And then because of that, I said, well, what else is collapsing? And that took me in the whole planet side of things. Holy shit, dead zones, the oceans, all these things are collapsing. And then it's like, okay, obviously it's a startup, so it's like it's a corporation, but it was like, well, everything starts as a startup, and then what is the underlying thing of the startup? Well, it's the business model, which is CAGR. You know, CAGR is the fuel.
When were you studying bees?
I started beekeeping in 2000, around 2009, 2010, around the same time I started FoundUps. It's kind of a parallel. I noticed one day there was no bees. Because I remember a thing and said, oh, the bees are gone. I was like, you know what? I remember growing up in England and seeing bees everywhere. You could look at a plant and there would be a bee there. Literally, bees everywhere. And I was like, you know, I can't think of seeing a bee. So I have a whole series of videos, maybe it was around 2011, 12. I walked around and videotaped flowers. Like, where are the bees? There's lots of flowers. Where are the bees? No bees. And I was like, God, I got to be a beekeeper. You know, I got to save the bees. I'm going to be a beekeeper. That was the first, raise bees. And then my family was like, no. And I was a closet beekeeper. Can you believe that a farmer would be like negative on bees? I was like, wow. You know, so I'm like hiding my bees. And then I get busted with the bees because some it wasn't even my bees. Some swarm of bees landed and they knew I was keeping bees. And they just assumed it was my bees attacking this, you know, thing. So they knew who I was because I'd gotten permission to hide my bees there. And next thing I know, they go around, you know, and they're telling my in-laws. Next thing I know, my wife's calling me irate from work. What are you doing keeping bees? You promised you would be keeping bees. And she's freaking out and yelling at me. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm busted. I had to come out of the closet. Yeah, I'm keeping bees. I was a closet beekeeper in Fukui, Japan for a while. And then I noticed that all the bees were sick. I went and looked at bees and they were all sick. They all had varroa mites, they had deformed wing virus. I said, what's going on? Why are all the bees sick? Even the bees there are bees that are raising were sick. So that kind of led me to that whole kind of rabbit hole of the collapsing planet. And it was like, well, if pesticides, the connection was if pesticides could be killing the bees, maybe it's our business model, our startup, right? And what is our startup built on? It's built on this idea of infinite growth. And that's when I got into all the Noam Chomsky in 2011. And I saw his videos and his talks and everything else. That's when Occupy Wall Street happened, right? And I was like, it's not the corporation, it's the startup, you know? And then I realized that 99% of that's the whole startup business model is broken. So when you got 99.97% pre-seed fail, 90% of seed fail, 75% of VC-backed fail, you got a failed system there, right? That is a failed system. And then it was all about the connection of you know, a framework, kind of like what they had for raising money. How would this framework look? How would be, you know, and what is the current one? That's where I came up with success equals access to capital, closed capital networks. That's the old one. And the new one will be success equals validated idea, which is the ICO, or what became the ICO. So the ICO becomes the validation of the idea based on who's the team, what they're doing, everything else. So, yeah. And then 2017 is really important because remember we were like, I was always debating, should it be 20%, should it be 80%, should it be 100% for the DAO? What should it be? What number should it be? I couldn't come up with that decision. Should it be flexible? And then after 2017, the answer was obvious. It's no, it's 100%. Boom. And we differentiate ourselves. Startups are capitalism, found-ups are DAOs, and found-ups are Danos. Boom. Clear. Simple. Simple distinction. Right? Are you here to be a billionaire? Go do a startup. Are you here to solve a problem and make the world a better place? Right? And you're not focused on capital, but on solution, then it's a found-up. It's that simple. You know? And all we need folks now to agree on is, hey, you know, what's, you know, and then we needed, and then I think the next thing was that then it took me, I think it was really hard for me to come up with the why. You know, the why found-ups. I'm always thinking about found-ups. But the why is social capitalism, is the replacement, disruption, the transformation, whatever you want to call it, of capitalism into social capitalism. And the how is found-ups to Danos, And the what is an event. Found Fest. So it's like now super tight. And we couldn't come up with any of that had we not gone through the whole journey we did. Everything from the failures in South Africa. I did a Brandon a video this morning. It's like, dude, man, I want to apologize. Maybe I overreact to my videos and stuff, you know? But I'm like, Brandon, you're supposed to be part of this, dude. Whether you recognize it or not, you're supposed to be part of it. I think of you as a brother. I do. I love Brandon, dude. I consider him as a little brother. I said, dude, I consider you as my rich little brother, right? He was an amazing guy, amazing family, doing amazing things. But you know, you threatened me, dude. You know it, right? I apologize if what I did was upsetting you, but you know, and I'm willing to rectify, take the videos, everything, whatever. But let's talk, dude. Let's have a come to Jesus, dude. Because I'm here trying to, you know, I'm on the same path as before. I'm the same guy as before. I don't understand how people change. I don't understand, you know, how you could say, hey, I really love you, I want to be part of what you're doing, to going, I hate you and I want you to fail. I don't get that part of human nature. How can you go from one to the other? And it's, you know, and it's like my best friend Robert, you know, I still feel for him the same way like I was with him yesterday. But the guy like doesn't contact, doesn't reach out, doesn't do anything. It's like, wow. And like all my communication with him has been me over the years. And finally when I went to Tallahassee, I said, fuck it, I'm not gonna contact him. And finally I did, even though I said I wouldn't. I reached out and said, hey man, I'm here. And he said, well, why did you call me? I said, well, dude, in the years and years that we've been connected, every time I've reached out to you, it's been me. I just felt like it was a little one-sided, our relationship. It's gotta be a little dualism, right? Dualism. So anyway. So you know, and I think that too, the journey, I mean, the whole, all right, other things that we need to cover, I mean, talking about it, I think our event, you know, you're going to the whole DevCon, the whole UNDAODU, you know, the meeting Brandon and Craig in the bar, and going to South Africa. I don't know. I mean, I think people find that interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's not interesting. These are all the choices of Doug.
I feel like it would it would end there, and then you know, you kind of end that whole thing and say, let the journey begin, and then it, you know, here's the deep dive.
So yeah, and I think too, and I think, you know, it's like I look back now and I was like, I know that it wasn't this event, you know, it's like I was destroyed. I walked away from the team. You're the only one that stayed, dude. The whole team dissolved. Think about it. The whole team, I mean, we had a great team. We had, you know, we should have done, I mean, everyone, I can understand everyone. We should have been a massive ICO we would have been a massive ICO. We would have had a name from them. It would have been professionally done. They would have handled it, done it all. We would may have been the biggest ICO. I mean, think about it. If we would have had Brad Pitt or De Niro, or what's his name?
Damon or
no, what's his guy?
Obama.
Huh? Obama? I mean,
Matt. Who was it?
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Not Matt Damon. The other one, no, it was Leonardo DiCaprio. Imagine Leonardo DiCaprio being our spokesman. Or
he is somebody that would probably would be aligned with this.
I know, you would completely.
Did you ever read any of?
I've heard all his fucking talks and shit, dude. He'd be all over this. Leonardo would be the guy for it, and they had the opportunity. They would have the ability to reach this guy.
We'd be looking at this thing from the outside. You would have been shoved out. It would have been huge. It would have been distorted. It would have been something else.
It would have become Microsoft.
You'd be rebuilding this again. Or you'd still be devastated right now.
Well, the thing is, UNDAODU wouldn't let it happen. See, that's the thing is that it couldn't happen because I would never have gone down that path, and that's kind of that's my Hercules heel. The Hercules heel is Found Up should have happened. It should have happened with Alinga, right? And Chandler Gao. It should have happened with them. And even with Alinga, and the thing is maybe I twisted with Alinga because really with Alinga, the reason why I killed the deal, and I should be honest in the book, wasn't that Chandler Gao killed the deal. I said that to Alinga, and then I acted like he did, right? I figured Alinga wouldn't support Found Ups without Chandler Gao. So in order for me to save face, remember when Chandler Gao, I knew Chandler wasn't going to support Found Ups, that I would lose Alinga, because Alinga's support was based on Chandler. So I just said, fuck you both. No, I'm not taking your deal. I had it in paper, Chandler Gao and Alinga Tauheed, right? To be owned by Chandler Gao and, you know, operated by Blockchain for Good, right? He had it, he wanted to control. But that whole thing too was kind of an opposition to me too. The whole idea to be owned by. And that's not what I talked about with Alinga. I was like, it would basically be in kind of like what's it called? What's the word? Incubated. It would be incubated in their organization till the point it became a DAO. It would roll out of it. So his deal was it was to be owned by and controlled by him and Chandler.
But that would have been interesting because if anything like that would have launched, right? Alinga in South Africa was right behind that. Let's say it would have taken off and been this weird mutated version of it. You'd have to regroup.
EOS.
You'd have to
Could
regroup
have been an EOS.
and rebrand and come up with this new thing, or force you from detach from all your previous works. See, that's something you haven't had to do because you've been riding on your own process here for how many years now? What would happen if you had to throw it all away?
I couldn't. I don't think I could. I don't think I could come up with it. You know, it's supposed to be Found Ups. It's supposed to happen. It is.
No, I think it would stay the same, but you'd have to rebrand.
I couldn't. What would it be rebranded as?
I don't know, but it'd be an interesting challenge for you.
Found Ups is so perfect. It's a verb to found up, the act of doing a beneficial startup, right? Right? You know, it's. I don't know, dude. I don't think I could. I really don't think I could. It's like that to me is like, I just see a brick wall there, dude. I see a brick wall that goes all the way up to the sky, and there's no way to climb it, no way through it. I wouldn't even start on how I would. What I probably would end up doing, is I would have lots of money, and I would basically, and the other thing too is, no, I could have done it, because they didn't know I owned the trademark. It would have been the whole fucking Rolls Royce thing. So they would have owned Found Ups, but I would have owned the trademark, and they'd be like, you know, to be owned and controlled by. But they have the attorneys. It'd be a hard battle, right? I'd have to use all my money to fight for it and get it back. It would have been a big battle. Or then I would have been the type of guy that they couldn't stop. I would just be doing they would be doing their fucked up Found Ups, but I'd be doing the pure Found Ups. And then eventually the pure Found Ups would overcome the fucked up Found Ups. Right? Over time. That's what would happen.
They'd have to keep adapting the rules to try to lock you out.
Or murder me, send me out to the thing, and you know.
I think South Africans would have killed you.
You really do think? You think Craig would have just like taken? I don't think Brandon would have. You think Craig would have been the hitman? Craig would have taken me out.
I sent you the Art of War quotes because, and it said that. I really thought that if things got too intense, here it's an ordeal. To kill you over there is like $5. Oh, we got a guy. Yeah. I'll bring him a chicken tonight. You'll be dead.
You want to go see zebras? Let's take you out to see the zebras. Yeah, man, I'm all over the zebras.
Yeah.
Dude, man, the trout went for a piss and never came back.
Yep.
And you'd be there going, dude, they killed. You'd be the conspiracy theory fucker. Like, they killed him, man. They killed him. And you'd just be like, you know, you just dedicate your life to proving that I was killed by these bitches. And then we'll be like, no, and they're like, no, he's just a crazy dude with his big beard and his bald head.
Hunt down your skeleton and find the remains out.
I know. You'd just be your mission. You'd give up everything. You'd just be this guy walking around the desert, looking with a shovel until the day you die. And the day you die, there's there's trout. Fuck, I recognize.
Drop over dead right next to the body.
He's like, So anyway, all right, that's 30 minutes.